Skipper's place by the big window and struck important-looking poses. He peeked through the telescope, looking out into the blackness of the night for any sign of more flares or signals. But he didn't see any, and slowly the night turned from black to grey, and a new morning broke over the islands, with the sky full of hurrying, torn-up clouds. Pedro realized he had been awake all night, which made him feel even more important. He didn't feel tired yet, just hungry, so he went quickly to the kitchen and poured some mouse-sized cornflakes into a bowl. They were made from human-sized cornflakes, which had been smashed into little bits by mice with mallets at the East Wainscoting Cornflake Factory. Then he stepped outside onto the balcony to eat them. And that was when he saw something. "Oh!" he said. The sea, which had been so high and fierce last night, was very quiet and calm this morning, and the first light of the new day shone on rocks and patches of sand which the tide had bared. There were gleaming pools among the rocks, and in one of them, just for a moment, Pedro thought he saw a little mouse struggling. "A shipwrecked sailor," said Pedro to himself. But he could not be quite sure, because the mouse had ducked down out of sight behind a rock. It had looked too small to be a sailor, though. Perhaps it was just a mouselet, washed out of its nest by the storm. Or perhaps he had only imagined it. Pedro didn't want to wake Juniper without a good reason, so he went running downstairs to make sure it really was a mouse he'd seen. "Hello!" he shouted as he scrambled across the seaweed-slithery rocks outside the base. "Get off!" he added, as his tail trailed through a rock pool and a sea anemone grabbed him with its sticky little tentacles. He tugged himself free, clambered over a washed-up shampoo bottle, and there was the stranded mouse, sitting in a pool just in front of him. Only it wasn't a mouse. It was very small, and instead of back legs, it had a tail, just like a little fish. It was a mermouse. Chapter 2. Meepy. "Meep!" said the mermouse. Pedro tugged on his whiskers 3 times to make sure he wasn't dreaming. Mermice were another of the things he had been hoping to see when he came to the Mouse Islands, but Skipper and the other adventure mice had laughed when he asked about them. "Mermice?" they had said. "There's no such thing." "They're just tall tales mouse sailors tell," Skipper had explained. "I thought I saw a mermouse once," Bosun had said, "but it was just a trick of the light, and when I looked again, it had vanished." But here was a real, live little mermouse boy, and he showed no sign of vanishing. His tail was covered in shiny yellow scales, just like a goldfish, and he was clutching a soggy red woolen thing in his tiny pink paws. "Where have you come from?" Pedro asked. "Meep," said the mermouse sadly. Pedro wondered what to do. He looked all around, but there was no sign of any other mermice on the shore, and the sea was making grumbly noises, as if it was thinking about coming back and covering the rocks again. Pedro made a decision. "Come with me, little mermouse," he said, scooping him out of the rock pool. "Juniper will know what to do with you." "Meep," said the mermouse. A big white wave came rushing over the rocks. Pedro turned and ran, with the mermouse in his arms, all the way back to the mouse base. "Juniper!" he shouted, running up the stairs. "Juniper, help! I found a mermouse, and it isn't a dream, or a tall tale, or a trick of the light, and it goes meep, meep," said the mermouse. There were a lot of stairs in the mouse base. Pedro stopped to catch his breath halfway up, and Juniper ran down to meet him, still in her pajamas. "Really?"